All right. Here we are. We're still in the Great Depression. We're going to be looking at US 18 and attempts to try to end the Great Depression by our President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, or FDR, which you'll hear me say a lot. So here is what's going on, which you already know from last time. From US 17, that's going to take us to US 18, and that man right there, FDR. All right, and we'll be looking at some of the things that's going to happen. I'll talk about some of this stuff here. Getting into, yes, the attempts, look at that lovely lady, to end the Great Depression. All right, so here we go. So, all right, have your, oh, this is a little bell ringing. You're not going nowhere. Sit your butt right here. You ain't going nowhere. All right, US 18. Have your notes ready. We're going to get this started in 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, and a 1. That's right, US 18. And it goes like this. As a response to the Depression, the Great Depression, how did Franklin Roosevelt's, or FDR's, New Deal and governmental programs aid those in need? Have your pencils ready. Let's get into it. In the first presidential election of the Great Depression, American voters rejected Herbert Hoover. They didn't like the guy. You saw that. You saw why in the last one. And voted in FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. That's right. Roosevelt used the name, this will be his plan, New Deal. He used the name New Deal for his series of programs. What's he trying to do with the New Deal? To end the Depression. He promised these programs would help different segments of the economy recover by addressing specific needs and weaknesses. This standard will measure your understanding of how Roosevelt's New Deal affected the lives of American people. And I'll ask you this question. If you think the New Deal worked, bringing us out of the Great Depression, or it did not. All right, let's get after this here. All right. Title of this is Putting People to, can you guess? Work. Putting people to work. All right. One of Roosevelt's major, these are called New Deal programs, was the Tennessee Valley Authority. We will call it probably the rest of the time and this is what you see all the time, the TVA, the Tennessee Valley Authority. This was established in, the year is the same year that Hitler takes over in Germany, but we're not in the war yet. In 1933, to do what? Can you guess? Build something. Build, and can you guess? Dams. To build dams, and what do you do with the dam? The whole point of building it is to create power plants. To build dams and power plants along the Tennessee Valley and its tributaries. That's right. The Tennessee Valley is Tennessee, Alabama, a little bit of northern Georgia, Mississippi, Arkansas, Kentucky, and a little bit of North Carolina. So the Tennessee Valley itself runs through 7 different states. So the project was huge. It was very large. All right. It was huge. It was very large. Hold on, pause this for a second. All right, we're back. Yes, the TVA, so I'm looking at, built dozens of dams to control the environment by preventing disastrous floods. Each dam had its own power plants, parks, and navigation aids, and their construction employed, here's what FDR was trying to get, was employment for a lot of places. Well, the construction employed hundreds of who? It employed hundreds of jobs for unemployed workers. Now let me go back up here. I have to put the wrong word right here, but it still works. All right, so each dam had its own power plants, parks, and navigation aids, and their construction created, that's the word we're looking at, hundreds of jobs for unemployed workers. So TVA comes out of the New Deal, creating hundreds of jobs for people by making dams and power plants. All right, now the question you'd ask, did this work? No, it did not work. The New Deal did not solve the problem of the Depression. So this takes us to our next topic. FDR is going to come up with the second New Deal. So try something else, the second New Deal. All right. All right, we are still in the second New Deal. Refers to the programs. President, who are we talking about? Who are we talking about? President Roosevelt. You just write FDR if you like. Instituted after his original New Deal failed to completely fix the American economy. It may have helped some for a little while, but the jobs he created were temporary, so they're only going to last for just a little while. All right, so this is what he created. The National Labor Relations Act, better known, I know it's a lot, the National Labor Relations Act, better known as, and you'll never hear me say that again, National Labor Relations Act, is better known as the, you'll hear this though, Wagner Act. Wagner Act was one of the first reforms of Roosevelt's second New Deal. All right, so there's a little gimmick to help remember the Wagner Act. It starts with the letter W. And the way I like to look at it is the Wagner Act is all about giving help to unions. So it starts with W, like W-Union, W-Union. The W-Union for Wagner Act is all about W-Unions. The Wagner Act's about the W-Unions. You take this, look, two W's, it looks like W's, put them together, you get W. W-Unions for the Wagner Act. I know, maybe it helps, maybe it doesn't. Anyways, this law established, and you guess what it establishes? It's what the unions have, collective bargaining rights, for workers and prohibited or stopped such unfair labor practices as, like this. So here's some unfair labor practice. Intimidating workers by threatening to fire them if they don't work more hours. All right. So intimidating workers, attempted to keep workers from organizing. What's that skill that workers would organize? And they would use organizing unions and strikes in those unions. So this is what it did. Oh, I can't spell there. So let me read this all again. All right. So the National Labor Relations Act, better known as the Wagner Act, was one of the first reforms of Roosevelt's second New Deal. This law established collective bargaining rights for workers and prohibited such unfair labor practices as intimidating workers and attempting to keep workers from organizing unions and strikes and firing union members. The law also set up a government, they all also set up a government, all right, agency. Man, I can't find my own spot here. The law also set up a government agency where workers could testify about, what are they going to testify about? Can testify about unfair labor practices and held elections to decide whether or not to unionize. All right, so this is the Wagner Act, which supported unions and the creation of them. After the passage of the, what are we talking about? The Wagner Act, industrial workers began to, are they doing what they want to do now? What are they going to start doing? They are going to unionize. They're going to unionize. All right, the American Federation of Labor, which is our first labor union founded by Samuel Gompers, American Federation of Labor was hesitant to organize certain groups in industry. So industrial, that's right, industrial unionism, because it was committed to craft-based workers. So the AFLs are a union already there, and they don't want to unionize everybody. They're kind of worried about it because it's committed to certain groups of people like carpenters and railroad engineers. As a consequence, another union was made, the Congress of Industrialized Organizations, or the CIO, was created to represent industrial workers who felt they were being represented or not being represented by the AFL. The AFL and the CIO, we think they got along a lot? They should. The AFL and CIO, they clashed on and off with each other before, check it out, they merged. Before merging, the AFL and the CIO, they did get along at first and they merged in 1955 to become, check out this name, the AFL and CIO, which still exists today. So it is now called the American Federation of Labor and the Congress of Industrialized Organizations. That's a mouthful. Get you some of that. All right. One of the most important actions of the, where are we? Second New Deal was the Social Security Act. And some of y'all know what this is, and everybody needs to, which was passed in, the year is 1935. We're not in World War II yet, but we're getting closer. We'll get in there in 41. This law consisted of 3 programs. First, we have old age insurance for, who would it be for? Retirees. Maybe you one day. Retirees aged, you have to be, how old do you think you have to get it? 65 or older, and their spouses paid, all right, it paid 1/2 by the employee and 1/2 by the employer. So 1/2 is paid by you, 1/2 is paid by the employer. All right, here's the second part of the Social Security Act, was unemployment compensation. You may have heard of that. Compensation paid by a federal, who is it paid for? Paid by a federal tax on employees and administered by the state. So if you lose your job, it's not your fault, you get fired because the business is just getting too small, then you'll get unemployment compensation even today. The third part of Social Security is aid for the disabled, or the children of disabled. So aid for the disabled and for families with dependent children, paid by the federal government and administered by the states. So let's look at the Social Security Act just real quick again. One of the most important acts of the Second New Deal was the Social Security Act, which was passed in 1935. This law consisted of 3 programs: old age retirement compensation, all right, unemployment compensation, and then aid for the disabled. Know those 3 things that may impact your life one day. All right, let's get through with part 1 by looking at a little bit about what we just looked at, and we'll start right here. So here is, what was Franklin Delano Roosevelt's plan to keep the U.S. out of the Great Depression? It is the New Deal. Did it work? No, it didn't work. All right, part of it though was New Deal was supposed to get electricity to Americans by creating the TVA, or Tennessee Valley Authority. Here's some of those dams being built. Big old dam. But some of them may be around here. All right. Let you know that here's some of the dams. There's a lot of stuff happening around the dams. The dam stores. You go inside to get you a damn T-shirt, get you a damn cheeseburger, a damn fishing rod, you know, whatever. Some damn sunglasses here. That's right. If you're building the dams. All right. After the first New Deal did not work, Roosevelt tried the Second New Deal. All right. What act helped unions? W-unions. W-unions started the Wagner Act. That's right. All right, the first union was the AFL. The next union will be the CIO, or Congress of Industrialized Organizations. Name 3 parts of Social Security Act. Retirement part, unemployment, disability. That's right. And that will end part 1.